Hey everyone, welcome back to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jen Amos, and I'm really excited because I have an awesome boss babe that I get to chat with today. I want to introduce you all to Mae Karwowski. She is the founder and CEO of Obviously. The company website is obvious.ly, which is a leading global influencer marketing agency and technology platform, which she launched back in 2014. Under her leadership, Obviously has become the global standard of influencer marketing by providing the best full-service client experience, managing complexity and scale of influencer work, and using data analysis to inform all strategies. She has been a recognized expert on the influencer industry and has been quoted in, you've probably heard of these publications before, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, NPR, CNBC, and the Washington Post. And you're probably familiar with some of her clients, Google, Amazon, Lyft, Ultra Beauty, Coca-Cola, Hasbro, and there's probably a lot more on that list. With that said, Mae, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I couldn't help but read your entire bio. I was like, I'm just going to read it all because it's just too good.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that I read sort of the very professional, polished bio of Obviously, but let's take it down to simple terms for people that are hearing about influencer marketing for the first time. What does your company do and why influencer marketing?
Yeah, great question. So what we do is we make influencer marketing really simple when it's actually pretty complex to execute when you're working with lots and lots of influencers. We found that to do influencer marketing well, you really have to work with a lot of influencers who reach different audiences to really test and learn to see which influencers and which audiences are really responding to your brand and the creative brief and everything about the campaign, and which influencers audience really aren't as engaged. So we make it really easy for large brands to work globally with influencers and to make sure that they have a really strong relationship with the ones who are just doing awesome for them.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome. I feel like the word influencer has been a new term in the recent years. I'm curious to know, how does your company Obviously, pre-qualify or vet these influencers to work with?
I know the word influencer has just really crossed into the mainstream in a way that when I started the company, people would be like, what do you guys do? Like, well, what's an influencer? And like, it's like a blogger, but on other platforms too. And they're like, oh, okay, I got it. So yeah, I mean, you can sign up and be an influencer at Obviously. You just go to studio.obvious.ly and we'll accept anyone who has over 1,000 followers on a platform, which I think a lot of people are really surprised by. But we do see a lot of, we call them nano influencers or influencers who have between 1,000 and 10,000 followers, and really finding people at that long tail. So maybe you're really into knitting and you have 5,000 followers who are like, I love all the knitting that this woman does. We'll work with you on, potentially a knitting client or a brand that wants to get in front of knitters. At the same time, we'll work with someone who may have 250,000 followers, and we'll do a really big campaign with that person. And the process of working with those two types of influencers are pretty different. But when you're a client, you just want to, do the right thing and do the right type of influencer marketing to hit your goals.
Yeah, I think that's so incredible. Really providing this agency for people who have at least 1,000 followers. I didn't even know that. So I could technically be an influencer.
Sign up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might.
Do it.
I was like, I have the link here. I'm just going to sign up later, just see what people might like me for.
I mean, you're a podcast influencer for sure.
I am. Yes, you are correct, Mae. I am a podcast influencer. I think that's so awesome because I think for people who want to get into that space, I really like how you shared, you don't have to have millions of followers to be considered an influencer. You could have this tight-knit community that's obsessed about one thing, like knitting, for example. And I imagine that you can find sponsors to push through for that influencer to promote. So let's talk a little bit about what that would look like, partnering influencers with companies.
Yep, definitely. So it is important for me to call out that we're not representing influencers, we're really representing the brand. And so we're making sure that we're getting the right influencers, the best influencers for the brand. We're not just saying, hey, here's our roster of 25 people, try to make any brand work we can to give them more work. And I think that's really important because, if you're a Sephora, if you're an Amazon, you really need to do things at scale because you're so big. You need to really be able to see the impact of the marketing that you're doing. And if you are leaving it to your own internal team, maybe you have one person or even 5 people, But if they can actually, work with 1,000 influencers that you need them to work with to actually be able to show results for a company that's working at that scale, the opportunity that's created with influencer marketing is somewhat diminished because you can't really hit the scale you need to get the results that you want. So if you're a brand and you're working with us, we'll walk through, hey, what are your goals? Are you launching a new product? Do you really want to reach a specific targeted community that you haven't hit previously, or you just want to have better relationships with? Do you really want to drive sales of a certain product? Do you just want more brand awareness with a certain segment of, a given audience? We will then figure out those goals with them, find the right influencers who really, like, if they did work together, would hit those goals, and then get those influencers in front of that brand. I guess the key part I forgot to mention was we really need to make sure the influencer actually genuinely loves the brand and is super excited about the partnership, because one, like, we've all seen terrible influencer marketing where you're like, that person like, has never used that product, like, and like that just doesn't work. It doesn't perform well, and it can really sour someone on your brand.
Yeah.
So really want to get the right influencers in front of the brand. And then we send them the product. We talk them through the creative brief. We make sure that all the content's on point. It's released into the world. Their followers react to it. And then we really optimize and learn from there. So for the next campaign, we're taking what worked well and what didn't work well, and just doing the next campaign, doing something even bigger and better.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like this high-end dating service, between companies and influencers, and really like, figuring out, like, calculating if it's going to be a great match. And obviously the influencer, in the end, it's like, oh, let's see if the influencer and this company that we've like meticulously chosen to be together actually like each other. So that's what it makes me think of.
I know. And I think like so many brand marketing teams will just be like, oh, I love this one influencer. And it's like, okay, well, is it just because of their aesthetic or their story? And then you might have someone on the brand marketing team who just like really likes the person. But what we do is we say, okay, let's actually analyze their audience. Like, where does their audience live? What's the age breakdown? What other brands does their audience follow or interact with? Let's really make sure that we're working with the right person for you. So when they do talk about your product, you're going to get maximum impact. And really be able to drive sales rather than, oh, I just like this person. Like, why? Because I follow them on my own personally. You're like, okay, well, you might not be the right target demo.
Yeah. No, that's very fascinating. So Mae, as I mentioned in your bio earlier, you started your company back in 2014. So let's sort of go back to that time and share with us, how did your company come about? Like, how did you come to this place where you're like, I'm going to start my own agency and it's going to be about influencer marketing?
Yeah, there's so much opportunity in the space since all these platforms are just launching. Like Instagram was just launching, which is kind of crazy to think about now.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I feel like it's been in my life forever.
Exactly. It's wild. And so I was like, oh, all these normal people are just creating these awesome communities online. Let's figure out a way to actually get brands in front of those communities and really give new opportunities to these creators who have just really built something out of nothing. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. So we really took that idea, and then as different platforms emerged and brands became more and more comfortable with the idea and really started seeing like very positive results working with influencers, we just began to really scale and grow. And then we built this really great tech platform that our team works within, so that we can work with 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 influencers at a time.
Wow.
And our brands don't have to be answering emails at 3 a.m. with someone who needs a response right away. We actually have warehouses where our brands will send us all the product so that we can send it to the influencers, so we can answer all questions rather than, having a brand manager sit there like packing up 3,000 boxes, just trying to make it easier so they can really feel comfortable working at the right scale.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very robust system and team behind what you do. It's more than just, pairing up a company and an influencer. It's everything that happens in between that, when, the influencer does receive like some leads, for example, from, promoting an ad for the company, or really, really promoting, the other companies, I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like, that's so important. Is just being able to make sure that the process is awesome for the brand, so they can really focus on the strategy and what the marketing team wants to do, and also making it really, really easy for the influencer, so that, they're really busy. They're scheduling and creating a ton of content. They're managing their communities across many platforms. We just need to make it really easy for them to say, yeah, I'd love to work with that brand. What do I got to do? And make it like so easy for them. So we're just getting the best influencers to work with the right brands.
Right. No, that's awesome. I'm curious to know, because obviously you have a very impressive resume of companies that you've worked with. How are you able to establish those types of relationships early on?
Um, yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's really important to, when you're starting out, especially, to really, tap your network. I
Hmm.
was looking at any of my friends who were social media managers, because I was a social media manager before I started the company. Like,
Smart.
oh, hey, who's working at a really cool company right now? And and can I just like get a coffee with them, hear what their needs are, hear what their wants are, and see if there's a potential opportunity for them to test out working with us. And that goes a long way when you're just getting off the ground. And then the third company you work with, you have two case studies. You have to do a good job with those two people in the
Mm,
beginning, but then you really start to get traction.
mhm,
And we always thought it was really important that we go after really great brands right from the beginning, who had solid marketing budgets, who knew the importance of
mm.
marketing and online marketing, so that we could really just keep growing with them as they started to see the opportunity and the results that they were getting from social media, from working with influencers, so that we could just keep growing as they decided to invest more of their budget into the influencer space.
Yeah. It's so essentially you focused on aiming high, for the clients that you knew would have the budget and the understanding of online marketing, I think, to begin with, and to say, hey, instead of just doing paid ads, why don't we, use these influencers or these people who've already built this community and kind of use them as an ad platform. And so
Yeah,
just being able to paint that picture for them, I think that's so smart to like, talk amongst your friends, like who else is a social media manager? Like what company are you working at? Like, I think that's so cool I think it maybe gives some starting social media managers like some hope to think like, oh, like this could be your way into bigger companies, is the way that you did it. Like, let's just grab coffee, let me pick your brain and see if there's any opportunities here.
totally. And I think that goes both ways too. If I ever have a friend who's like, hey, can we just grab a coffee? Or like, now over Zoom, can we just have a quick catch up? I'm trying to think
Mm,
about like, what to do next in my career. Like, I'm always down. I like to always end every conversation with like, hey, is there anything I can do to help you right now?
mhm.
And I think that like that is just so appreciated by people in your network. Even
Yeah.
if you're not talking to them, like, you're talking to them a few times a year, or you're just checking in, or you're, like, hey, way to go. Awesome
Yeah.
job with that promotion. But I think that that's really important, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious to know, obviously 2020 has been a very interesting year. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering if your business has maybe pivoted in a way, or has even your services have maybe even skyrocketed because everything has gone online. So has the pandemic impacted your business in a positive or negative way? Like, how has it been for you?
It's been a wild ride. That's definitely that's definitely the case. I think we're seeing that like the second half of the year has been very positive, and we're
Wow.
we're seeing like clients who maybe were on pause, or were like just trying to figure out their own internal budgets, because the
Mm,
pandemic has affected so many of our clients in different ways. Some are doing extremely well
yeah.
because people are inside and they need fitness equipment, or they need meditation apps, or they need there are a number of brands that are like crushing it because things
Right.
have changed so much. And then we had a number of clients who are in the travel industry or the fashion industry, and they're
Mm,
like, hey, things are super different, we kind of need to evaluate. And then we really found the second half of the year that brands were like, hey, everybody's online. Like, everyone's spending so much more time on these social channels.
right.
Whenever we work with influencers, that's something that's really working well for us. So we've seen brands really come back bigger and stronger than ever.
Yeah.
And that's been a great way to close out the year, honestly. It's been
Yeah.
it's been great. And then also, like, they're really already setting up like, hey, 2021 needs to be huge for us with influencers. What are we doing? And
Mhm.
that's great too, really getting those clients who are like, we want to go big. Like,
Yeah.
how do we do this in like the most strategic right way?
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely awesome. And I'm just happy to hear that things have just gotten better,
Yeah.
with your company. And also I feel happy for these other companies, these big companies like in fashion and in the fashion industry where, I'm sure sales have plummeted because all we have to do is wear a top, we have to just look good from here up here. And so, half the industry is like, oh, great. Like, what are we
Yeah,
like
the anyone
pants
who's
and
doing
socks
pants,
and
pants
yeah,
is having a hard time.
anyone's doing pants or like suits and business attire and stuff like that. It's just like what are we gonna do? And it's also great to see how like gyms, for example, have pivoted in their own way and provide like online courses and stuff like that. So it gives me hope and also inspiration to know that businesses are constantly evolving and improving. And it just comes to show that I feel like the companies that have really evolved in this experience are in it for the right reasons. And it's really to serve, their clientele and the trends, and following the trends, because obviously we have a different level of new normal at this point. And who knows? We don't know if this is like the new normal. I'm sure it's going to change quite frequently still. That's still happening. But anyway, I just feel like I'm just kind of like rambling about that right now.
No, I mean, there's just so much change. And I think that you're really seeing brands that, and companies that can handle that, and companies that can't handle it. And I think it's actually a really good time to be an entrepreneur, because there are so many new needs created and other like needs that existed that don't exist anymore. So both if you're, an entrepreneur in the B2B space or in the B2C space, it's like, there are just totally new, like, just opportunities out there that weren't there previously. And there are a lot of people who are like, the number one dominant companies in a space that are now like, hey, we lost a lot of ground because of just the changes. So I think it's a good time to be an entrepreneur when there is uncertainty. It also, I mean, it can definitely be a little stressful. I'm not gonna understate that. But I think that like, it's definitely a good time to be starting a company.
Yeah. So Mae, I should ask you from an entrepreneurial standpoint, the fact that you have been in business since 2014 and your company continues to thrive. What's your secret? Like, what do you do to stay sustainable and relevant and awesome?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing for me is just like, I'm always learning, and not always like, I mean, I really keep on top of the influencer space and what's happening in social media, but I think in tech in general, and also just like always trying to learn new things in different fields too. Cause I think that finding the relationships between things that are not obvious, I don't even name the company I did, but are really actually something that can like provide inspiration and provide a new way of thinking about a problem. Like I've really gotten into new podcasts about like sports performance and like how to coach teams on like an athletic field versus and then I'm thinking about like teams in terms of like my company's organization. But like that is just a totally new way of thinking. Or like, hey, how does a restaurant work? Or, how does a casino work? Just thinking about, okay, how do different organizations work? And I think bringing that level of like curiosity and just always trying to learn more has been just like hugely motivational too. It kind of helps you be like, oh, today might be tough, but like I got some really cool things I want to think about and test out. So that's what I like to do.
No, that's awesome. And I have to ask, where did the name Obviously come from?
So actually, before I started the company, I was at Guild Group, which was an online retailer, and I had a great boss who was writing up our launch plan we were launching a new product, and he was going through, okay, sales is doing this, biz dev is doing this, events is doing this, PR is doing this, and social, obviously Mae's doing like whatever it is she does. And I was like, obviously social, like, a company should obviously be social. A company, like there are certain things that you need to do, and you need people to know about your brand, and you want people to talk about your brand. And I was like, that's great. And then now it's kind of like Inception, because whenever people talk to me, they say obviously, and they're like, yes.
There you go. Yes. You're like, I've ingrained it in your
it's in your brain now. You can't escape.
You think obviously, you think Mae. Love it.
Influencer marketing, definitely.
Yes. You practice what you preach.
Totally.
Mae, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I just want to make sure that you had shared everything you want to share on the show. So with that said, any final thoughts or anything else you want for our listeners, small business owners and entrepreneurs to know about your company, or maybe just any parting advice for, being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially right now, just given we're in such a real moment of change, it's something that I've kind of thought about with, obviously, as a company, being in the social media world where influencer marketing, the only constant is that it's changing. And I think like my whole company has really embraced that, so we could come into work and there could be a totally new platform, or a platform could have totally changed their algorithm, or, a giant political movement could have launched on like, some corner of the internet overnight. So I think like really embracing that and embracing that change and trying to find the opportunities within drastic change, it's really a really valuable mindset for any entrepreneur right now. So I think that's my big parting thing.
Yeah, it's a great way to wrap up the conversation. I mean, there was already so much knowledge that you dropped, but thanks. I think it's a great way to wrap up there. Mae, it's been such a pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for joining us on The Thoughtful Entrepreneur.
Oh, thanks so much, Jen. Really liked it.
Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it. So I always like hearing that feedback.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And so to our listeners, once again, this is Mae Karwowski. You can learn more about her. She's the CEO and founder of Obviously at her website, obvious.ly. And with that said, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.